From the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, Outdoor Oklahoma. Hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead. If you like fishing, especially wintertime fishing, today's show is a keeper. We're going to be up at Canton Lake with the crappie king himself, Donnie Jenkins, and his two sons, Cody and Kelby. Fishing is something that this family has a very close bond with, and they're going to be giving us all kinds of tips. So set your DVRs, push the record button or something, because today's show is a keeper.
Hi guys, how's fishing this morning?
Not too bad.
Been catching quite a few?
Catching a few every once in a while. Fishing about 12 foot deep.
We're here at the Canadian area, and this is where we bank fish. You don't have to have a boat to come out and fish the Canadian area. This is where the Wildlife Department came in and put a whole bunch of trees out here for us. And so if you want to fish the wintertime for crappie, this is a great place. There's 3 places over here on the dam that's real good too, that the Wildlife Department put out some cedar trees. So we're going to give it a try and see how we do. This is where we're going to fish right here, and I'm going to demonstrate a little bit on how to rig up my my bobbers and everything. And I don't use tackle boxes, I use buckets, and it's easier for me to move my stuff around. So what we're going to use a bobber, and we like to use a little bit heavier bobber because I'm going to use a little bit heavier weight. And so I get these little boxes, plain old boxes, and that's what I use how I use my tackle in them. And what I do first, I'll put the bobber on, and then I'll put a hook in it, and this hook will be on the end of it, and you can use an 1/8 ounce or a 32nd or a 16th ounce hook. And then the weights I like using is a egg sinker weight, and it goes all the way through, and then I'll show you how I tie it in just a few minutes. And then I use a black and chartreuse, and then a purple and orange, and that's been a fair good color for catching these crappie in the wintertime. When I'm finished and I've got everything all hooked up, this is how it's going to look. I've got the bobber, the weight, and then I've got the hook down at the bottom. Yeah, minnows are good too. If you don't want to try the little tube jigs or the Bobby Garland soft baits, if you want to use something else, a minnow's great, and a minnow out there just swimming around will always attract a crappie.
And how come you use jigs instead of minnows?
Well, the way I like to fish, in the wintertime it gets so cold out here that my hands get cold anyway, and so if I have to dip in and get a minnow every time, my hands are froze. So I enjoy just using the tube jigs or the Bobby Garland soft baits. Okay, on crappie fishing out here in the wintertime too with the slip bobber, it's best to know where your brush is and and especially to know where the depth is. And so I really need to find out and ask Kelby next to me to see what depth he's catching his fish at. And Kelby, how deep are you going?
I'm taking my bobber and putting it about a little bit under my reel, and then I'm just tying right here above my reel. So I'm going probably 11, 12, probably.
11 or 12, okay. So that's where I'm going to set mine at. If you're not catching them at one place at one time, you might go ahead and try your different depths again and see if you can get a different depth of where they might be. Because in the wintertime, they'll usually go where the warm spot is down there, and if they're at 12 to 14 to 15 foot, they're going to be right in that area anyway. So that's where I would try. I would try the shallow, about 12 foot foot first and then go to your 15. And I mean, just a foot every time until you can find them. And then once you find them, I'd stay right there and then keep on fishing for them. Okay, the depth that he was telling me at, he was telling me he was catching them at 12 feet deep, 11 to 12. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you how I tie to my line, where whenever this bead gets to that line, or gets to that knot, it's going to stop right there, and so you'll be 12 foot deep. So what I do, I put my line together like this, and then I squeeze it together, and I just go around my finger, and then back through, and then just make a knot in it. And then once you get that knot right there, you got a little bit bigger knot than what you want to come in your reel. So you just keep on bringing it back this way. And then you got a small knot. And the reason why I'm doing this is because if you get out there and you get hung up in this brush pile, you can always bring a tightness on your bobber, and it's going to loosen this. It's going to loosen just like this. Your knot's going to come undone, and when it comes undone, that bobber comes back to you. And if whatever you lose, you're always going to get your bobber back, but you're not going to get your hook or your weight back. And the most expensive stuff is your bobber anyway, so that's the reason why I do it this way, to get my bobber back, because it's a little cheaper to lose a hook and a weight than your bobber. Be sure and bring more
big fish,
more hooks and more weight and a few bobbers, because you're going to lose some of it down in the brush to fish. And if you don't lose anything, you're just not right there where the crappie are at. So if you lose, pardon me, if you lose any of your jigs in a brush pile, you know there's going to be crappie in that area. Let's see what we get here. See if we can pull one of these crappie out here. Fish on. Nice fish. But this is about probably a 6-7 inch crappie. Beautiful crappie out here. This lake has got so much bait fish in it that they've really, this is a last year's hatch, but this is really, these crappie out here, we've got abundance of shad and ghost minnows that really favor these crappie for eating. I'm just going to go ahead and put this one back down there in the water. And to say too, the water, what kind of a temperature we've got out here this January, it's 28 degrees. We've got a light and variable winds out of the southwest, and it's pretty cool out here. Why the crappie come to these brush piles, they just try to get away from the other fish, and they'll come to these brush piles, and they'll just congregate in the brush where it's a lot warmer down there where the trees are at. And that's the reason why they come to this area, Canadian area, or over on the dam areas where there's trees and stuff. Fish on. Another nice looking crappie. Not really, I mean, this would be a good pan-sized crappie to eat, but I'm kind of really looking for a little bit bigger fish. But this would be just good for the skillet.
Now being in college and paying for my own meals, I don't really care how big they are, just as long as I can get some meat off of them. Whenever it gets icy and stuff and it's blistering cold, most people won't show up to fish. But the ones who are true at it, they'll show up to fish and usually do pretty good. That's when we catch most of our bigger fish, is when it's blistering cold and you can't stand it.
What I'm doing out there, I threw it out there where the brush pile is. That's my bobber out there setting. If I don't get a bite right off the bat, I kind of twitch it a little bit. And then once I see that bobber move out there, then I know I've got a fish on there. And a lot of times if you don't get a bite, reel it in and cast back out there to the same spot where you was at. Oh, got the brush. Okay, now I've got the brush. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to get my bobber back. I'm going to have to break off probably on the other, but what I do, I pull a little ways, and that's going to take that knot out of there. And so now I'm going to try to get my bobber back. So I'm going to put a pressure on it like this, and keep on bringing it in. And what that's doing, that's putting pressure down on that hook down there. And here comes my bobber. My bobber's coming right back to me. And then what I do then, I just go down underneath it and lift it up and then bring it back to me and grab a hold of the end of where the hook is, of the hook part, and then just keep on pulling. And then I broke off. So what I did, I left the hook and the weight out there, which I couldn't get it in. I tried to, but I couldn't get it. So now I've got my bobber back, but now I'll retie up and try her again.
Well, you know, just about the time I think I've heard and seen it all, Donnie Jenkins comes up with a new trick. That saving the bobber thing is pretty sneaky, and I'm going to try that myself. We'll be back with more of the Jenkins fishing at Canton Lake right after this week's Outdoor News Report.
Me and my brother, we started fishing this lake with our dad whenever we were probably about 3 years old, maybe 4. I can remember when we were little bitty, we used to have little Snoopy poles, and we fished off. We had a old marina that we fished on just right over here in Indian Cove.
You can catch them all through the day. They probably have spurts where they'll bite better at different times where they'll turn on and off. But yeah, there's in the mornings and the evenings is usually when they come in and feed really good. But they're through the brush pile all throughout the day. So.
And then especially in the wintertime, the crappie fishing is the best. But I think it's the best, but you've got down the road, you've got the spring coming up, starting in the latter part of March, all the way into June. And you've got the spawn season, and that's really even good too. So it's not just in the wintertime that you can catch crappie. You can really pretty well catch crappie anytime out here, but to catch a good abundance of crappie, the winter fishing's good and the spring fishing's real good too.
Dad, you got a fish.
I've got that brush again.
Well, I think you had a fish.
Well, usually my brother and me and my roommates, we usually eat quite a bit, so we usually like to have a bigger fish fryer so you can cook more fish. Because if you have a smaller one, it takes longer to cook and don't get to eat as fast. But
what we use a lot out here, we use the niblets, and you can put a niblet on the end of one of these, of your hook, and then it's got a kind of a candy smell to it, and it really attracts the crappie that way. But so far this year I haven't had to use any of it, so I've just been using just the straight jig color and red chartreuse or the other colors that I've mentioned, but a niblet is good. it does work.
It's weird the wind come out of the northeast.
This might have had a small hit then.
Nice little
If
fish.
it's blowing real hard out of the north,
Nothing big, but he'll fillet.
it's really hard to tell when you get a bite with using a bobber. And if you really don't have no blockage of trees out there to block the wakes of coming in here, but just like a while ago we had a little bitty front come in. We had kind of a it was a southwesterly wind. Now we've got a northeasterly wind, so it's kind of put the fish in a kind of a spot right now where they're not biting quite as good. You can still catch a few of them, but it's just not like catching one right after the other. Well, it's just kind of, you know, I was catching some fish a while ago out of the southwest wind, and then the wind switched out of the northeast, and it's got a little bit of a hard where I can't hardly see my bobber out there bouncing like that. As you can see right now, in the wintertime, especially in the wintertime, about all the way through, you definitely want to watch where you're stepping out here. What we've got a lot of ice on the ground, on these rocks. And so when you definitely come down these rocks, really be concerned about them because they're just as slick as ever. And what's happened, this water came in from the north, and when it did, it blowed it up on the rocks itself and froze. And so that's how cold it is out here. These probably won't melt probably for a week or so. It just depends on how warm it gets. But even in the springtime or any time that you're out on these kind of rocks, and if it's kind of damp, you're always going to have a little bit of a slickness to them on them rocks because of the fact that there is some, it's a kind of a moss. And so it really makes it real slick. So really watch what you're doing when you come out here, because that's really a main concern. If you happen to fall and break your leg, pardon me, if you happen to fall and break your leg, that's your fishing days, or that's your fishing for quite a long time. So really keep what you're doing and watch your steps or where you go. If you'd happen to fall into that water out here, that water is 20-some degrees out there, about probably 28 to 30 degrees now. So the hypothermia would set in pretty fast. Well, guys, I think I'm going to give it up. I've caught a few fish today, but not as many as what I thought I would. But hey, it's been a beautiful morning, and it's been great fishing with you guys, and I'll see you then maybe tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. We'll stay out here and stay after it for a little bit.
Okay, we'll see you guys.
See ya.
Leave it to our good friend Donnie Jenkins to prove that even on Oklahoma's coldest winter days, you can still catch a mess of crappie from the bank. You know, and bank fishing's encouraging for me because I don't own a boat. If you'd like to find out more about Oklahoma's hot spots for crappie, just pick up a copy of the Oklahoma Fishing Guide. It's fun to see that even though the Jenkins boys are grown, they still enjoy a day on the lake with Dad fishing for crappie. And did you happen to notice who left first this day? Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you somewhere new next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.